Okay, so it's time for a Strikezone Wotan update. There has been an Infinity campaign running, and while we had Carlos in the studio, we wanted to get him in to pick him brains, go over a few charts and graphs because we all love that kind of stuff, and really just to get a catch up on where the campaign has been going, and look at some of the choice battle reports and name drop a few of you
Lovely
amazing
stuff.
commanders as well. So, Carlos. Phase one, we're in phase two, a quieter kind of a phase. There's secret missions kind of bubbling under the surface.
Yeah.
Okay. Phase one closed. Phase one was enormous.
Yeah, huge.
So let's talk a little bit about what happened in phase one. I'll kick off with the map of phase one. So we had the following ships. So Strikezone Wotan. Carlos, what's the basic backstory to the campaign?
Well, of course, the Infinity factions, all of them have tension because they are the human factions are always willing to be number one, and above everything else is the alien menacing presence that at some point is willing to enter in the human sphere. One of the key points of the blockade against the aliens is the Wotan Gate.
Yeah.
That you have there a lot of.
So that's these two components here on the map.
Yeah, this is the Wotan Gate. Yeah.
That gate communicates the Paradiso system with the Svalarheima system. There is presence of every faction there, and there is a lot of security measures and a cluster of defense. And I mean, it's not a weak spot for humanity. It's something that has been fairly defensed. At some point, one nomad spaceship. In a security search, they were found aliens inside that normal spaceship, and that creates a crisis, an opportunity. A lot of stuff happened because the factions use that excuse, that failure on the nomad security measures, to blame of the nomads as smugglers, as everything that what they could pull out of that situation, of that weak moment.
Fake news!
Totally.
So it's that moment of, look, we can no longer trust you. I'm afraid you're going to have to submit to search and seizure.
It's even better than that. It's that moment of, something bad's happened. There's an opportunity.
Totally. And Yuqing, which was totally against the nomads for the defeat that they suffered in the previous campaign, the Flame Strike, Flammy Island, took the chance to diplomatically and tactically and strategically smash the nomads in every possible way, saying, we are going to search all your spaceships and all your battle stations. We do not take you seriously in terms of security. You have put humanity to risk with your smuggling and your black business and everything. So you no longer have authority to say anything to humanity. And now, if O12, if the United Nations of the future are not taking an active role on this, we will take it. You know, that kind of behavior.
Yeah.
And that created tension in the Wotan blockade, and that created that suddenly military ships, military crews appear on the zone, and every faction decides to increase the presence on Wotan, and that tension leads to secret missions, skirmishes, stuff happening.
Yeah.
So that's the fluff starting point. Okay. And of course, then the players come and the players play the missions and the players execute military actions, and also the aliens obviously see the opportunity also because humanity is totally distracted, killing among themselves. It's time to conquer the Wotan blockade. That is the fluff explained by me with my words. Okay.
if you want to get to grips with the background and stuff like that, the documents are available over at wotan.warconsole.com. You can set up an account, download the documents, and if you fancy, you can get involved, pick a faction, get stuck in. So we had some choice kind of moments in phase one, but we're going to do a little bit of a faction review here, Carlos.
Oh yeah.
And where possible, I've got some interesting charts to kind of show you guys as well. So Panoceana. What's been the verdict on Pan-Oceania so far?
First of all, Pano, after the first weeks, it was obviously that Pano was the faction that had the biggest amount of players participating in Wotan. So you can see a graphic with a blue column bigger than the rest. So that means that more players are playing with this faction, are participating with this faction. That means more battles and more results. That having a bigger amount of players goes against the percent efficiency, because if you play more battles, it's more difficult for you to have an increased level of success. There are more valuables there, okay? So what we have with the scoring system is that the Pano had 2 locations to defend in phase 2 and in phase 1 and also in phase 2.
We can actually see those in Sick Tier 2
and Sick Tier 1, part of the Sick Tier defense cluster. So that was intentionally designed by Corvus Belli in order to make the big factions have to defend more ground and that have to divide their forces, essentially.
Because the thing is here, it's when you come into these campaigns, we talk about balance. Campaign is not like a game that you play on your tabletop. In the campaign, there is an asynchronous aspect to it, in that every war has smaller factions and larger factions. So in the narrative, what we saw coming from Corvus Belli was giving the larger factions more to lose, to open up the opportunity for the smaller factions to kick more butt. And we have been seeing that. We have been seeing that.
Essentially that. It's not a competitive event, it's a narrative event, but some of their features were designed with that kind of storytelling in mind, okay, because it's narrative overall. So suddenly we have Pano there, and Pano at the beginning of the campaign in phase 1, it was like, probably because there was a bigger amount of players, it was difficult to find leadership on that huge amount of players playing. So it felt like they were dividing themselves over all the locations. There is Pano presence on all the locations. But they didn't become super strong in one particular location.
We didn't see any major aggression from Pano. They really were. They really did start to castle in the 2 Sick Tier points and really focus on the defense of that.
That is a psychological effect that every faction has. This location is red, is my location. I play there to defend it because it will be humiliating to lose it. Everybody behaves like that. We knew that since the beginning. The people, first thing they do is defend their location. Pano, apart from defending the location, behave like tourists.
just little visits.
Just here. But you didn't see any intimidating Pano presence in the rest of the location.
I think it was a case of the Pano never really were aggressive enough in one point to break it open enough to smell an opportunity to really go for it. And a lot of that was down to some of the smaller factions got organized very quickly and started to make their presence felt in different locations.
And we will reach that point. Okay, so at the same time, nothing was menacing Pano pretty much during the first weeks of the campaign. And also we must mention that because the phase 1, the tension was rising, the factions who have already dominated locations for them did have an advantage in points on that location, which was a big advantage at the moment. So it was difficult to take over those locations because of that advantage. But looking at the numbers, at some point you will find that in Sector 1, the Combined Army, which is a faction that didn't have any ground to defend, obviously they focused their efforts in attacking Pano, attacking the big dog. Okay. And at some point, Combined Army was able to take over, even with that advantage, to take over the Sector 1 the location from Pano, which is a huge, impressive achievement, in my opinion, because Pano is the biggest faction and have a lot of advantage there. So for me, that was the first big achievement of the campaign, and there was an update made. I happened to be looking at the map when that happened, and I was able to
get a screenshot.
Get the screenshot.
Because these things can change quite quickly. It's,
oh well, keeping track of the campaign is a full-time job. I mean, it's a huge amount of data. You cannot, you have to live looking at the screen really. And also during phase 1, at the La Forja mobile shipyard, there was a lot of intensity there, especially because those missions were new stuff that was not in ITS, so people were curious and a lot of people played there. Aleph and Ariadna, both of them did put a lot of effort in one of the locations, of the normal locations there.
Well, we will come to that, because I got some charts. Before we move off Pan-Oceania, there's a couple of commanders we'd like to name drop. We have Thandar and Louis Joy are totally bringing glory to their faction. Great job by
Louis
you guys.
Joy is becoming like the guy with the banner of the faction.
He's almost Pope-like, isn't he? There's a real Des Volt going on in there.
Yeah, totally.
Yu Jing. Okay, this is your faction, Carlos.
My faction, Yu Jing.
Now, Yu Jing, how are you doing?
How are you doing? Well, I decided myself not to reveal privileged information to Yu Jing this time.
Yes.
At some point I was suggesting stuff, because Yu Jing is the third biggest faction in amount of players. And it's a powerful faction. And it's a faction that can really deliver excellent attacks and stuff. What happened is that the Yu Jing was lucky because Yu Jing didn't have 2 locations to defend in phase 1, but I think that they didn't realize how lucky we were not to having 2 locations, because Nomads have 2 locations, Pano had 2 locations, Yu Jing 1 location. They should have been more ambitious. They should have been interested not only in defending but also in attacking some place. But they did not. They just focused on their efforts on Sanqian, and I knew that in phase 2 Yu Jing will get 2 locations. So that phase 2 for Yu Jing is obviously defend. And that requires a lot from us. Also, Imperial Service during the campaign received a boost because suddenly there was an Imperial Edict that allowed bounty hunters to be deployed in Imperial Service with certain advantages. They receive updated troop profiles. So suddenly bounty hunters become regular troops in Imperial Service, which was like outraging for the rest of the factions. What? But it's an Imperial Edict. The Emperor signed
you guys are okay by me.
Official document and allow that. If you cannot do that, it's because you don't have an Emperor, Okay.
No, they were defending Sanqian. I believe I actually have some charts for Sanqian. So let me just load her up here. And with a bit of luck.
Also, we know that Yu Jing is like attractive to try to beat. People hate Yu Jing, especially Pano, especially Nomads. Everybody seems to hate Yu Jing, so they attack it like we have some kind of attractive to them. Also, our spaceship is the coolest, obviously. Sanqian,
you have a light frigate.
Oh, lovely, elegant.
Well, this is the official kind of track of what you would have seen. So you've seen them starting with a 25-point lead, and then you see them the battle between them and Toha. Toha really organized themselves. Look how much Toha organized themselves here compared to all of the other factions. And
it's so obvious that they at some point decide to go to for the Yu Jing. And the rest of the factions lost interest.
You see Pano, at the start kind of trying to get stuck in, but then Toha around the 3rd of June, 4th of June mark, saying, right, this is ours, we're going for this. Now, this is interesting because if I bring up the actual, what becomes the official, remember that War Console, depending on the campaign, but War Console runs on a system whereby what you're seeing live in the system is affected by fog of war. There can be propaganda in there, there can be lower quality reports and stuff like that are kind of counted as noise coming in from the front lines, lies, deceit, propaganda. So we run this thing called AI Historian, which is a much more sophisticated algorithm that scores battle reports on their trustworthiness. Okay, when we start to look at it like with that lens on, this is where we get to. Have a look at this.
Toha took it for a moment.
For a moment, Toha were right there. Now we have, for the benefit of this is a chart that we've used internally just to see the effectiveness of the factions. You'll also notice we removed the 25-point lead from there as well. So we just purely want to see on the basis of how the factions fought from a standing start. So we removed the initial advantages and stuff like that.
Yeah. Although it does look like Nomads took a little bit of an interest near the end. There's that bit of a spike there where it looked as if they were going to go for it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it just unfortunately didn't follow through. But look how close it actually was between Yujing and Toha, and the effort that Toha started to put in. Now, that effort is not just fighting more battles. That effort is also quality of the battle reports
and effectiveness. And it's a huge achievement because Toha is the least played faction in the campaign. It's the faction that has the lowest amount of players. So they are beating the third faction there. And we know that Yuqin decided to defend their location. So the third biggest faction defending is still being taken over at some point by the lowest faction.
Yeah.
Humiliating for Yuqin. Humiliating. So disappointed. I'm so disappointed with you guys.
Well, you know what you have to do in the current phase. Defend. Now you really have to defend.
Oh, yeah.
I can also show you another quick graph. You know, it's because some people are interested in the size of the engagements and stuff that take place. So we actually do have that data. So on Shanquang, you can see that it's overwhelmingly 300-point battles. So these are not small battles that are taking place in the grand scheme.
300 points is the standard. And obviously, if we point at a specific mission in that location, while people is aware to allowed to play the mission that they want and stuff, obviously everybody follows the book, follows okay, this is the standard, let's do it like that. Especially probably in the Nomad location, which were new missions, probably those were even more interesting for people.
Well, anyway, whatever way you look at it, the result didn't change. Yujing, although you had a shaky moment there where Toha were really starting to reach on a performance level, when in the grand scheme of things, you did it. You managed to defend it. We got a couple of outstanding commanders that we want to mention.
From Yuqin, I would just like to point out Maranies and Von Butler as people who were making lovely battle reports and standing there for the faction, like standing proud.
Congratulations, guys! Amazing, amazing work. Right, moving on to Ariadna.
Ariadna.
Okay.
Possibly the best coordinated and organized faction during this campaign. They were not a big dog in the previous one, in the Flame Strike. They were doing well, but not impressively. Here, Ariadna is becoming a primary color of this campaign, standing up, conquering locations, being playing a major role in this campaign.
Well, in Phase 2, we have a couple of highlights. Ariadna have taken over Indra 3.
Yep.
I'm not sure if Indra 3 is on this map. Yeah, there it is there. So.
Yes, but that Indra 3 in Phase 2 has two locations, two spots.
Yeah.
One of those belongs to Ariadna since the beginning. The other one is the Aleph location that has been totally taken by Ariadna in Phase 2.
Yeah.
So another achievement for Ariadna. And also Ariadna was so close to taking over La Forja in Phase 1. From as far as I know, they have pretty strong leadership there.
Yeah.
Someone is totally saying what must be done, and the whole faction responds to that, and that shows a lot of coordination, and that is also effectiveness.
It's interesting because another highlight, I suppose, of these kinds of campaigns is you're all kind of thrown in at the deep end. It's almost as if it's like your first day on the job. And you're arriving in the middle of a war breaking out, and it's up to the factions themselves within the briefing rooms to organize themselves, and they start to create command structures, leadership. Now, I've got to say a big shout out to Hak Islam on this one, because the Hak Islam guys reacted instantaneously to this.
Yes.
And what they did was that they realized early on how important leadership in the faction was.
Yeah.
So what they did is they immediately instituted the previous high command that had taken command on Flamia.
Right.
And helped to organize and inform and educate new players on just what was going to happen within this campaign, what to expect. And then,
so did they set up like boot camp threads?
After a very short period of induction and getting everybody organized, they then held elections and recreated the high command, including people from old and new.
Lovely.
And it was seamless how they organized themselves.
It took me a few days to realize about that, because in the rounded graphs of activity in the locations, you still see proportion and the rounded thing. But suddenly, when I was checking the amount of victories and results on all the locations, in the first week, the illegal Fundak, the Hack Islam location, reached like 200 points. The huge advantage that the Hack Islam army made there was bigger than any other advantage of any other faction in any other location. So they obviously put a lot of effort in coordinating themselves.
The coordination is key. So for this campaign or any campaign, when you're dealing in global campaigns, coordination is utterly key. You need to be in the briefing rooms. You need to be interacting with each other, whether in character or out of character, but you need to interact, because it's only through your combined interactions that you can really have an impact on a campaigns like these ones. So big shout out to Ariadna, Akazlam, Nomads. A lot of you guys really got your act together very quickly.
Yeah, let me point out specific commanders. For Ariadna, commanders like Ekip Baguette and Drogmir are really performing very well. And I also have to point out that lovely battle reports by Terror and Napoleon. Lovely stuff. Really a lot of self-involvement and time investment in those reports. Also for Hack Islam, a faction that is behaving very impressively in this campaign, I would like to give a shout to Karti C55 and Sirin Bakarat. You know who you are.
Yeah.
Sirin Bakarat is really wearing the colors for this campaign for Hack Islam.
Okay. Right. Nomads. You guys have made me smile through this entire campaign. Nomads are without doubt the party boys of the Wotan campaign. I cannot think of any of you now without you standing there just in a pair of leopard pants giving it this here. So it's like
Nomads are enjoying the propaganda thing of the campaign so much.
Yes, they are.
Okay, the Nomads are the number two contestant in this campaign in terms of amount of players. Okay, so they are number 2, but they, in my opinion, they are not quite delivering up to the number 2 role.
Yeah.
I mean, the La Forja was almost taken both by Ariadna and Aleph in phase 1, and they were not able to defend Don Pillote in phase 2.
Yeah.
So they're suffering. I know that this may not be an isolated happening, an incident. Probably they have a strategy. Because in Flamia they were the best coordinated, in the previous campaign they were the most coordinated faction and did have the best ideas about when to report their battles. I can expect something from them. Yeah. I do not believe in their numbers. Really. I think there's something.
What's happening?
Yeah. I will do not underestimate the Nomad faction. They're number 2, and at some point probably we will have a wave of reports or something like that. That is just my Yuching suspicious behavior. Okay?
There are moments in a campaign, but all campaigns have their kind of peaks and troughs. And at the moment, we're at that Bruce Lee breathing moment. So we're just waiting to see just if Nomads are regrouping themselves and getting ready for something. So
I would like to point at commanders like Tristan, 228, and Hydra as people who are achieving and reporting lovely reports for Nomads.
Well, while we're on the topic of Nomads, we can have a quick look at the La Forja to see how things actually transpired there. So. Here we had the mobile shipyard part of La Forja, and as you can see, Nomads utterly went to town on that. Yu Jing started to wake up a little bit, but they woke up just too late at the end there. I think it was a case of that Nomads had went so strong on it that it was disheartening. But as you can see, it wasn't the initial advantage. The initial advantage was almost entirely overcome by Toha, within a couple of days. So the initial advantage itself wasn't, I don't believe, was such an issue in this. But what happened then is look at the curve, look at the steepness of the Nomad response to potentially losing the shipyard. Now we can have a look at that ratified then by the AI historian.
And the Toha did take over at the beginning.
Yeah. So whenever now we're removing the advantage, okay, and we're now scoring based on quality of battle reports and things. Look at Toha. If Toha had have been able to maintain, but bear in mind Toha did maintain it elsewhere. So it's but if they had maintained that, they would have. I think they could have maybe overcome the numbers. But it is quite overwhelming, the response from Nomads.
So we, analyzing the data, we can see that the least play faction did took over number 3 location and number 2 location against those factions, faction number 2 and number 3. So that is a huge achievement.
It is a huge achievement for the smaller factions. Again, I can show you the scale of the battles and stuff that have been taking place. So again, it's the vast majority is your standard 300-point games. And then you have a smattering of your mid-range games and your starter games at 150 points. Let's look at what happened though on the other side of La Forja, because La Forja is joined by a gantry here, as you can see. So we've been looking at the back end there, the shipyard. It was the military harbor we were looking at. Yeah. Now we're going to the control deck, okay? Yeah. So let's have a look at the control deck. So this was the as it happened.
Yeah. Oh, that was really hard fought for.
There has been some fighting taking place here, hasn't there?
That's intense.
So here we have the Nomads, and it's in this case Aleph and Ariadne really going at it with the Nomads. But let me do the points adjustment now and show you what the AI historians saw. And you can see a little bit of a drop by Aleph. Now that is interesting. That is interesting because in the human sphere there was a moment towards the latter part of the campaign when the news feeds on the human sphere utterly erupted that that Aleph have managed to seize control from the Nomads. And what we had a classic Rambo moment, okay? The system doesn't make it easy for surprise attacks. So if you hold up all your reports and then you unleash them on the day, from a flag of war perspective, people get all excited about this because the news reports say, "Oh, there's been a huge attack," and so on and so forth. But the reality, when things calm down, the reality sets in, and reports that are done like that never perform as well as reports that are fed out slow and steady, because time increases the value of reports. Okay, it's built into the platform that time just increases the value of them. So it can be done if you have enough organization within your faction. You could pull off a surprise attack, okay? But for lone Rambos who come out and publish their 14 battle reports in one day, it looks impressive for a moment.
One guy, 14 battle reports in one day.
So what you see here in this one, you can see that spike between the 17th and the 18th, okay?
Yeah.
And for a brief moment, it actually did flip control, at least in the front end. For a brief moment, it gave the impression that control had been won by Aleph.
Right.
Now, the Nomads were very quick to go, "Oh, this is unfair. This is unsportsmanlike. These surprise attacks." But they also had enough in the can to immediately respond as well. So it never actually registered on our charts. And then when the historians kick in, the actual view is even more stark, because at this point you can see that barely any increase. They're just tracking along with Ariadne, and look at Ariadne powering on. you were very, very close.
I mean, in my opinion, if Aleph and Ariadna did communicate among themselves and one attacked one location of La Forja and the other one attacked the other location, it's like saying, Aleph, you will have the control deck and we, Ariadna, will have the military harbor.
Yes.
One of those will have taken over the location.
I think so. I think if you guys had have coordinated, as Carlos says, and split, we would have seen the Nomads would have been under serious pressure.
So some people were suggesting an alliance because for the Nomads this was an attack, you know, but it's not an alliance because if they were allied, they will split the attacks, and one of the location, one of the spots will be lost.
Yeah. Again, I can show you in terms of the battles fought. So again, overwhelmingly 300-point battles. This had the most battles, I believe, of any of the theaters.
No, I think Sector 1.
Was Sector 1?
Yeah, because Combined Army and Pano did have made a
massive fight. Yeah. So there you have it. Mostly 300-point battles, a larger proportion of 200-point battles than we've seen elsewhere, and a kind of similar number of your 150 lower point battles in there. So still a lot being deployed to that region. Okay. Back to Aleph.
Yeah. We were praising the achievements of the Toha, and Aleph is right there. I mean, second smallest faction in participation in amount of players in the campaign and achieving incredible things, as you can see in the graphics. Almost taking over La Forja, and they have already take over Don Peyote.
Yes.
So they obviously play in the faction because Aleph and Nomads are rivals, totally enemies. And I've been reading in the internet that the campaign scoring system just favors the big factions. I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing the smaller factions making the greatest achievements here. So salute you to the Supreme AI. As a Yuchin player, we get along very well with Aleph. Thanks for those Garuda attack bots and Aleph staff in Imperial Service. Yeah. I would like to point that Pinoy Wargamer and Functionary Mal as commanders that are bringing glory to the faction, obviously.
Toha. Let's talk a little bit about those guys. They were the smallest faction, least amount of players. But again, they did really puff their chests out in phase 1. So it's
that coordination. They're focusing all the efforts, which is what you have to do with the smaller faction.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like probably they have a very strong core of players that they are communicating and putting all the efforts, and this will be rewarded, guys. I mean, such achievements, being the smallest faction and being able to take over locations, that will be rewarded. I mean,
your fluff will go down in history, believe me.
Oh yeah.
We'd like to point out a couple of commanders there, Dasal and Engron, totally bringing glory to their faction.
Yeah.
Finally, Combined Army.
Combined Army, a big faction. I mean, among the average participation, and with no place to defend, no location to defend. So they obviously put their efforts in attacking. And they decided to mess with the big dogs. They were ambitious.
Yes.
Okay, they were not scared with the sector defense cluster. Everything to Pano.
Yeah.
Okay, and the first big achievement of the campaign, in my opinion, that for a brief moment they were able to take over Sector 1.
Yeah.
Which is a big achievement, totally. And even without getting in the AI history and data, the online live data, and even taking over the huge advantage that Pano has. That alone is a great achievement. Okay. Essentially. If I have to point out some commanders, I know that there are great commanders out there, friends of mine, hello. I would like to point out Sergeant Hulka and Kechao as main figures reaching
new heights. Yeah. Okay, guys, that wraps up. We have battle reports that we want you to see, and they're all in the show notes. I just want to quickly read out the names of the battle reports, okay? We can very quickly flash them up on screen, but I want you to go and check them out. Some of them are brilliant.
Some of them are excellent.
Okay, so we have Thandar from Pan-Oceania. So it's
Phase 2, Don Peyote.
Phase 2. We have Lewis Joey on Panosiana. Battle report there as well. Mariness from Yujing. Okay, we have Von
Look at this, look at this, look at this.
That's beautiful.
This
amazing
heavily
stuff.
edited photos, almost with a narrative. That kind of battle reports counts very much.
Yeah.
And that adds glory to your faction, really.
Yeah.
Von Blutcher from Yujing has a great battle report up as well.
Look at
that one.
Nice. I love the way they're doing the sort of backward and forth, sort of old school video game
like,
thing before getting into the game.
like yes, it's one of those RPGs.
Terror from Ariadna.
Look at that,
Isn't this
comic.
Yeah, look at it. It's
A
amazing,
comic
isn't it?
I love the way some people are going so to town on their stuff.
Look at that, with dialogues and everything. With dialogues in battle reports. I mean,
That's cool.
What's not to love about that?
Napoleon from Ariadna. Oh, look at this.
Beauty.
It's a
Premium war
Took
comic.
the time to make those images. To look at that.
loving the gaming tables as well here. So
Yeah.
we have a Quip Baguette from Ariadna. Look at that.
That's very clearly
Taking
laid
time
out.
to explain the action.
Very nicely done.
Isn't that really cool?
Keeping track of where everybody is.
We
Very
have
nice.
Yeah.
Drogmir from Ariadna as well.
Very nice. I love this table.
Yeah, Carti C55 from the Hack Islam. There's some beautiful details and image galleries in that one.
Oh, the lovely building.
We have Serene Baccarat from the Hack Islam.
Yeah, Sirin Bakarat is a very active player for Hack Islam.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, lovely. With close-ups and stuff.
Tristan 228 for the Nomads. Oh, this is so cool.
Nice.
Oh, I love your gaming table, man. We have Hydra for the Nomads. Look at that. This is some seriously cool stuff, guys.
He's actually put some video content in here.
Oh,
too.
yes. Some of these guys love putting the soundtrack of their battles in. It is great.
That's a good idea.
Sergeant Hulka for the Combined Army.
Oh, look at this one.
It's not just...
Oh, so it's all done as just this comic strip. That's cool. See if we can bring it up. Nice.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Wait till I'll bring that up for you. Yeah, so go and check it. Go and check these out. We have Kachow for the Combined Army. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, that table is lovely.
That's a really cohesive table. It's lovely.
Oh, that's very cool. I want to find out how you built that. And we have Engron for the Toha. Oh,
Showing off deployment areas.
nice stuff again, yeah.
Beautifully done.
We have Dasan for the Toha.
With the sheep over there.
Oh, I love this table. The way this is laid out as if it's like a little outpost is beautiful.
Yep. And we have Pinoy Wargamer for Aleph.
Oh, yes.
There is some really, really cool battles and pictures
yeah,
in these
I
guys.
Want to take, look at this. It's impressive. They also, the players immediately saw how to build, images and text and take all the tools that you allow them to have when making a battle report, and they're building beautiful pieces, really.
Yeah. And then finally we have Functionary Mal from Aleph.
Pacific Rim theme tune.
Yeah. And there we go.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Nice table.
Okay, all of the links for those are in the show notes. Thank you very much, guys. Phase 2 is underway with all the preparations and stuff like that taking place for the final phase.
Yeah, that will happen in July 10th.
Yeah.
July the 10th. That will be Phase 3, the beginning of Phase 3, with the latest changes on the map and the last 2 weeks to play the campaign and decide who has won.
If you haven't participated or have never participated in anything like this, it's not too late. You can join in at any time. So go create yourself an account, drop into the briefing rooms, introduce yourselves, and the high commands in the briefing rooms will wrap you up in their lovely warm arms, take care of you, and explain to you what you need to do and how you can get involved. And get results for your faction. Carlos, look, thanks for dropping in, mate. It's been lovely to get a catch up on this. Okay, guys, go get stuck in to Strikezone Wotan.